Welcome to this video on how supply chains became the world's real superpower. In the 21st century, economic interdependence is the main arena for great power competition. This program is brought to you by the Series of Thoughts team as part of their Business Management Education series. Great powers now employ economic statecraft, a more sophisticated form of conflict that replaces traditional warfare. Countries use trade restrictions and manufacturing dominance as strategic weapons. Modern economies are built on incredible complexity. For example, a single automobile contains components from over 30 countries. The architecture of interdependence spans dozens of nations for key products like automobiles, satellites, and computing. The crucial detail is that corporations, pursuing profit and efficiency, built these dense global supply chains, not governments. This corporate origin makes supply chains resilient, yet vulnerable to national security concerns. The rare earth crisis of 2025 highlighted the fragility of these chains. China controls the overwhelming share of the rare earth supply chain, 70% of mining, 85% of refining, and 90% of magnet production. The disruption revealed an access crisis, not a scarcity crisis. The problem wasn't a lack of raw materials, but a lack of processing infrastructure, which China strategically invested in for decades. Supply chains have transformed into strategic weapons. Dominant powers use them to contain rivals, while rising powers leverage them for influence. Corporations become political actors, adapting to state strategies based on profit. Strategic industries require massive quantities of critical materials. Electric vehicles, wind turbines, and defense systems all rely heavily on rare earth magnets, underscoring why supply chain control matters deeply to geopolitics. A handful of materials power entire sectors, creating unprecedented leverage. Nations controlling these choke points wield influence far beyond their military or economic size, with processing capacity being more critical than raw resources. Supply chains are the real architecture of globalization, more influential than trade agreements. While trade flows can be rerouted, the infrastructure and expertise required for complex manufacturing take years to establish. True control resides in processing power. Even if rare earths are mined in the US or Australia, they must often be shipped to China for refining, separation, and magnet manufacturing before global distribution. The bottleneck is the throne. Processing choke points create dependency, even for resource-rich nations. China's strategic investment in infrastructure gave it dominance that is difficult and expensive to challenge. Supply chains have redefined national security, making it fundamentally logistical. Risks include dependence on globally sourced defense components, clean energy materials, and technology infrastructure. The power of supply chain control compounds like capital. Initial advantages in processing attract more capital and expertise, leading to global dependence and geopolitical leverage. Supply chains create feedback loops that reinforce existing power structures. Dominance becomes exponentially harder to challenge, as breaking into established supply chains requires capital, time, and sustained effort. The business-state paradox highlights a tension where governments want to reshape supply chains for security, but corporations resist due to costs and optimization. This requires a complex negotiation between states, firms, and market logic. The evolution of supply chains shows a shift from pure efficiency optimization pre-2015 to a focus on resilience today. Strategic competition now drives major reshoring and diversification initiatives. Semiconductors are the ultimate choke point. Taiwan produces over 60% of global chips and 90% of the most advanced ones, creating immense strategic vulnerability for the entire technology industry. The stakes are clear. 60% of global production is concentrated in Taiwan, with three critical firms, TSMC, Samsung, and Intel, controlling advanced chip manufacturing. The digital economy depends on this concentrated capacity. Diversification is challenging due to high costs, specialized expertise, and scale economies favoring concentration. However, nations pursue it despite the economic difficulties, as national security outweighs efficiency. The new paradigm is resilience versus efficiency. The era of just-in-time manufacturing is over, replaced by strategic redundancy, geographic diversification, and increased inventory to mitigate severe crisis risks. Building resilience comes at a cost, including a 25% average increase in inventory and a 15% rise in logistics expenses. Organizations accept this trade-off because the risks of concentration are too severe. A new geography of production is emerging through regional blocks and, quote, friendshoring. This approach balances security and efficiency by sourcing from allied nations, leading to parallel supply chain ecosystems. This emerging map includes North American integration, European networks expanding eastward, and an Indo-Pacific realignment building alternatives to China-centric networks. The green transition adds new supply chain dependencies. China dominates materials for solar panels, batteries, and EVs, creating a dilemma where energy independence requires dependence on strategic competitors. Meeting climate goals requires securing massive quantities of materials critical to the energy transition. The International Energy Agency projects significant increases in demand for these resources. For policymakers, strategic implications include mapping dependencies, investing in processing capacity, building regional partnerships, accepting higher costs for resilience, and coordinating closely with business interests. In summary, supply chains became superpower tools through geopolitical leverage via chokepoints, creating economic coercion without war. Processing capacity, not mining, provides true control, and this dynamic shifts power beyond governments. Looking forward, supply chain competition will intensify, leading to fragmentation, massive domestic investment, and increased use of trade as a geopolitical tool. Success requires patient, sustained investment in strategic assets. Key takeaways. Supply chains are power. Choke points matter most. Security is logistical. Power compounds. Fragmentation is ahead, and strategic redundancy replaces pure efficiency.